Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Just wanted to thank you for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. If you haven't already, please support our show. The fastest and easiest way to do so, just hit the subscribe button. It's free. And you might also want to hit the notifications bell so you're notified when new files are uploaded here to YouTube. The cool thing about this channel, we're not only uploading the entire episodes, we're also going to let you check out little bite-sized clips if you want to share it with the wrestling fan in your life. And we'd love to help you save some money. That's what I do by day. Hey, it's Conrad on Twitter. You can also find me at savewithconrad.com. And I'd be proud to help your family save some money with my family. It really is that simple. We're licensed in more than 40 states. And if you're a homeowner, it's not a matter of if we can save you money, it's a matter of how much. We routinely help our podcast listeners save $5, $6, $7, even $800 a month. And I'm talking to you if you've got credit card debt. We can help you get rid of it just like that. You don't need perfect credit either. Even credit scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's free to find out how much money you can save. It really is no cost, no obligation, and since we're licensed in more than 40 states, why wouldn't you do this? Maybe you're in a 30-year loan. If you are, you're overpaying your single biggest bill. We've recently helped some of our podcast listeners save more than $100,000 worth of unnecessary interest. Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. And thanks for listening to the podcast here on YouTube. Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Arn, only on Westwood One. And of course, the man of the hour is the Hall of Famer himself, the founder of the Four Horsemen, AA, the enforcer himself, Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you, man?
Doing good. It's Tuesday. You know what that means.
It means it's time for hashtag Ask Arn Anything. Every other week, we let you guys jump in the driver's seat and ask some questions. But I'm going to start. Have you got your Valentine's Day figured out? If not, here's a life hack for you. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com, and starting at just $59, you can give the perfect Valentine's Day gift ever. Picture this, a real long stem American Beauty rose that's been lavishly and deeply dipped in pure 24 karat gold. You never need to water this thing. It'll never wilt. It'll never die. It's unique. It's special. It lasts forever. It even comes with your own personalized love note, and it's shipped for free, starting at just $59. This sounds too good to be true, but go take a look at them right now at IHateStevenSinger.com. And without further ado, let's get into it, Arn. Lots of questions. If you want to ask a question, 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing another hashtag Ask Arn Anything. And the only way to participate is to follow us on Twitter at The Arn Show. So just follow us there at The Arn Show. And look for those posts saying, hey, got a question for Arn? Reply here. So let's get to it. We've been fighting about this for a while now. Paul Diamond writes, we've heard Arn talk about his favorites from Whataburger and Waffle House, but what's the enforcer's favorite meal that his wife makes? I don't think we've put Aaron's cooking over enough here on the show. What's AA's go-to?
Well, it's going to take 2 hours for me to cover all this. There's no one dish. Her mom was an incredible cook, and she passed some of that knowledge down, obviously, to my wife, thank God. I would have to say it's either oven fried chicken or country style steak and gravy over rice.
Yeah, you've told me about that one before, so I'm going to guess that's probably your sleeper pick right there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Let's get to David Levy's question. He wants to know, who were Arn's favorite and least a favorite enhancement opponents to work with during the Techwood studio taping days? That's a fun question. We've heard a lot about guys like George South. And of course, a lot of our older listeners remember the Mulkey Mania. Chat me up. Who are your favorite enhancement talents to work with?
Well, it's hard to, it's hard to remember names. But I would say my favorites were guys that knew why they were there. Were thrilled to be there. that had some experience, that knew what their job description was that particular day, and went out and did their best to do exactly what you wanted of them. And that would be my favorites. My least favorites, again, it's hard to remember names, but guys that were either there for their own agenda, which was occasionally guys would want to go out and try you a little bit. It was rare. And those guys that wanted to get their stuff in, that was another situation. And basically just those guys that thought hey, I'm going to be on TV, I'm going to look good, and no matter what. So, the names, obviously, I can't remember, but that is the criteria that made you favorite or least favorite.
Let's keep it moving here, because this is something I've never talked about. I have a feeling what your answer is going to be, but I'm still dying to hear it. James wants to know, how did Arn feel about Stone Cold Steve Austin walking out of the WWE back in the day? So, of course, to catch up some of our listeners who maybe don't connect the dots, Stone Cold was in a weird spot creatively, not exactly happy with what was happening with his character. Got the heads up after doing a house show with Ric Flair in a cage match that, hey, tomorrow night on Raw, Brock Lesnar is going to beat you. And Brock was just now coming onto the scene. He's the new big monster. Austin was not happy with that creative, especially when he said, why? And wondering, why are we doing this here instead of a big pay-per-view? And instead of going and doing that, he just went home. What did Arn think?
Well, a lot of things, obviously. Number one, you got to know how to control your business when you're in this industry. You got to know, when it's time to say no. And that only comes around every so often. And a guy like Austin was in a position that when something appeared that he didn't feel was a business decision, and that's the way he operated, every time I was ever around him, it was strictly business. If it was a match that was going to be a throwaway and you weren't going to get your mileage out of it, I can certainly see him balking at it. And I think in that particular time frame, Brock hadn't been built properly. The angle hadn't been built. It would have been a throwaway. And it would have been one of those situations. You only get a first time match once. You can never go back and get it again. It's not that special the second time around. So I think Steve decided he was going to, draw a line in the sand, and he did, and he was able to get away with it because he was Steve Austin and one of the biggest stars this business will ever see. So, you got to know there's a point in time in every guy's career when you need to say no. Something's just not right, and it's not right for business, number one, and you need to put it in that order. It's not right for the talent involved. He made that decision. He went home, and I respect him for it.
Let's keep it going and talk about a more modern thing. Skibo wants to know, what do you think of the camera work in WWE, the quick close-ups, the zoom outs, the camera changes during impact of a maneuver? All of it drives me crazy. I've been told that after the switch to HD happened, they really started to double down on the cutaways during impact because they felt like maybe too much of the magic was being revealed. So if you switch to another shot, you sort of protect the magic, if that makes sense. So what do you think of the camera work and how it's evolved over the time? Well,
that's the goal. The goal is to protect the talent and, in everything they do. One of the things that was discovered when we went to HD is it's like you could see every pimple on every butt. You could see every little bit of grease in somebody's hair, whether it was intended to be there or not. Cosmetically, it jumped through the camera to the audience. Everything about your look. And obviously the physicality fell right in line with that. You know, you needed to be solid number one in everything you did, because that's the way it should be. But a lot of people were getting, some things exposed about themselves cosmetically, physically, and every other thing you can think of with the HD. So, the show looks like $1 trillion. It's crystal clear. It's awesome. But you see every little flaw, and that's just a hazard of HD.
So the cutaways and the zoom outs, does it bother you or do you get it? I mean, is it just evolution of technology more so than just Vince and Kevin's taste?
Well, it gets a little busy sometimes. Sometimes there's cutaways where you don't need cutaways, and that's purely anticipation, and that's the call of the guy in the truck that's in charge. Sometimes it just gets a little bit busy on cutting away from something, and maybe you end up missing something that it would have been just fine as it was. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other as far as that particular thing. I just thought it was the evolution of the business, and it was.
Dustin has a tremendous question. He says, what did you think of Hulk Hogan turning heel at Bash at the Beach 1996?
Well, Dustin, I was like everybody else. It was shock and awe. You never thought you'd see it. Of course, none of us had any idea of how big it would blow up and just how hot it would get. And the NWO thing, having Hulk Hogan as a heel, it was one of those things you thought you'd never see. And I don't think a lot of people even wished for that to happen. It was just one of those things you just went, wow, never saw that coming. And, as it turned out, it was a tool in the Monday Night Wars that allowed WCW to compete, not only compete, but kick ass. So it was the right thing to do, and it was just pretty shocking when it occurred.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's even cool to hear that, the guys in the business felt the same way as we did. Hoop, great friend of the show, writes in, most kids who loved wrestling picture themselves as a character and even give themselves a wrestling name as a kid. When you were starting your wrestling career, did you have a ring name that you envisioned before you were the Enforcer Arn Anderson?
Not a name. I just, I had a style, I wanted to be Dick Slater. I just loved the way he wrestled, the excitement that he brought. Bob Orton Jr., same thing. I just, that's who I wanted to be. Those guys were legitimate bad guys. They were talented. They were skilled. They could talk. They were smart asses. They were all those things that teenage kids idolize. And I didn't have a name for myself. I just said, I want to be one of the bad guys. I want to be like those guys.
Stoner Dale has a question that really dovetails nicely into that. Who was Arn's favorite wrestler of all time, past or present? So not just guys you grew up watching, but all time. Is there somebody, if they said, all right, Arn, you're going to have to sit down and watch 2 hours of this best of DVD and you tell us who it is and we'll press play. Whose matches is that going to be?
Oh God, that's almost impossible to say, but I will say this. The match that I could watch time after time would probably be the Midnight Express against the Rock and Roll Express.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's just, you go back and you watch it, everybody knew where to be for every moment of that match. And they switched it up every time you saw it to where it was a different match. That's how creative those guys were, and that's how talented those guys were. And you could sit and you could watch 2 hours. You could watch 5 matches that made up that 2 hours or 6 matches or whatever it was. And I guarantee you, every one of them would be different. That's what made you fun to watch in those days. That's what allowed you to draw money, is because every time people saw you, they saw something different, and they saw something that was quality, and that was quality.
Fascinating question here from Alan Smithy. We're going to cover this show with Jim Ross 2 days from now. So tune in for that. But his question is, what was the backstage reaction to McMahon blowing out both of his quads at Royal Rumble 2005? Laughter, concern, both. As a reminder, there was a snafu at the end of the Royal Rumble 2005. Batista was supposed to hang on. John Cena was supposed to land before him. They landed at the exact same time. So they're giving orders to the referees from Gorilla, have the SmackDown referees raise this guy's hand, have the Raw referees raise their guy's hand. Vince is going to come in, call an audible, say restart the match. He goes to leap in the ring, tears a quad, tries to power through and no sell it. Walking back through the curtain, he tears the other quad. It is almost Murphy's Law at that point. And it feels like something out of a movie, a bad comedy movie, but this is not the way people have seen Vince McMahon. You were there. What do you remember of the incident?
Well, it was chaos because we were having to call things on the fly. The human being in you wanted to go down and help the guy. You know, our first inclination is, you want to go down. I mean, one of the guys is hurt. If you wish that on anybody, you're not much of a human being. And everyone was concerned that it was a serious injury. You knew it was a serious injury. I don't think anybody, I'm sure there were some people that took solace in that and actually enjoyed it. I wasn't one of them. I just don't enjoy seeing any talent get hurt in any fashion, because it can happen at any time. It can be career altering. It can be life altering, for that matter. And it was chaos. Things were being called on the fly. Thank God, you know, cooler heads prevailed and they were able to get through it. But yeah, it was a mess.
No doubt about it. Let's keep it rolling. Interesting question here about from James Williams about Mr. Kennedy. Why do you think Mr. Kennedy never made it all the way to the top of WWE? He had the charisma, his work was good, but the rumor and innuendo was he had heat backstage. What do you remember about Mr. Kennedy?
Well, I remember he was talented. Guy was very talented. And he had a unique deal with the old school mic dropping and announcing himself. And he was a good performer, you know, looked good, could work, could talk. He had everything. Something I'm not privy to did happen backstage with some other talent. And I know that the office went south as far as he was concerned, their feelings for him and the way they were going to use him. And I know that something occurred. I'm not sure what that was, so I can't even comment on it. But I mean, he had a pretty successful career up until that point. And then, you know, as it were, something happened and his water got cut off. And I'm not sure what that was, but the guy was a very good performer in every aspect.
Adam Parsons writes, who currently in AEW do you feel like could become a crossover Hollywood star like John Cena has become?
Oh gosh. I'm just trying to look at them in a wrestler light right now and analyze them, because I haven't seen these guys and I'm just getting to know them. I know one that I think is going to get over in time is going to be Luchasaurus, believe it or not.
No, I don't think there's any doubt of that. He's got a great look. He's already been on some reality shows, so he's got a little bit of entertainment buzz from that side. No surprise.
Well, and you look at him, and I've looked up close and from far away. that's things that nightmares are made of. He's got that gimmick. He looks incredible. He does look like a monster. And most stuff you see these days is not quite up to par, or it's a little hokey, or it's a little this or a little that. He comes across as a real life monster, and he's a big, impressive guy, and he's athletic. And, I think the world is going to be his pearl one of these days.
I love you've dropped 2 Arnisms on us. Somebody turned his water off for him, and then the world's going to be his pearl. You're on a roll today. Big Red 603 writes in, you've often spoke about being an agent as part of the office for both WCW and WWE. During your career, was there a specific angle or direction that we can attribute to you?
I had my hands in a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff.
Is there one that stands out where you're like, man, I'm pretty proud of that? If I had to show somebody one thing that had my fingerprints on it, it'd probably be this.
No, I don't think there is any one thing. It was all just, suggestions that were taken and morphed into angles. One of the things that I think was unique, that was my idea, that I thought absolutely worked, was when the NWO dropped myself and they dropped Rey Mysterio, they put us in the same ambulance, if you recall, to take us to the hospital. And Rick was in there, and I think Sting was in there, and it was just the uniqueness of 2 guys, heel and a babyface, had nothing that brought them together except the circumstances of that night. Being in the same ambulance was a unique situation, and I think it made it real. When 2 guys would get in the same ambulance, 2 guys like Sting and Flair being in there, or I think that was the scenario. It just made it unique and real. And that was my idea. And I thought, it worked.
Absolutely. It works. People are still talking about it today. Late to the Nitro Party wants to know, who was your favorite quote unquote big man to wrestle?
Big man, I guess would have to be the Big Show, because he is a legitimate giant, but he's a giant not in the respect that he has like Andre was, the giantism, whatever the thing in your chemical makeup. That Show is just a 7-foot, 400-pound, totally symmetrical, totally athletic monster. He's just the biggest guy that you ever saw that looks normal, except that he's twice as big as everybody else. And man, is he athletic. And he had it from the very start. I had a match with him when he just started. He hadn't had but a few. And I got him to trust me and just follow. And we actually had a good match. And of course, I got my ass handed to me, but that was the plan anyway. What else you going to do with a giant? But it was one of those things that I thoroughly enjoyed. A guy that big, a guy that was that green could have easily hurt you, crippled you, killed you off, anything you wanted to do. And I think it flew, it worked, and it was a pleasant experience, and one that I'm proud of for both of us.
Cardboard Icons writes, we know you're a big Led Zeppelin fan. If you had to choose one Zeppelin song for your entrance theme, what would it be?
Stairway to Heaven.
Casey.
Awesome.
Casey wants to know, any Bob Cook stories? I've heard he used to throw the best punches in the business.
Probably as good as anybody, I would say. Bob Cook was a great performer. If you double back to one of your earlier questions about enhancement talent, if you put Bob in that crew of guys, he was as good as anybody. He should have been working full time on a crew his entire career. He was not only had a great punch, he was just a great worker. He did everything well. Why he never landed in a company, who knows?
Justin Hanna has the question we all want to know. Does Arn doubt El Dandy?
Funny thing about El Dandy, we all know who Lou Ferrigno is, right?
Yes.
Bodybuilder,
Yeah.
did well, competed with Arnold, right?
Absolutely.
He looked, El Dandy, he being El Dandy, looked like a tiny Lou Ferrigno. Go back and pull up a picture of him.
Especially with the hair. The hair made it.
The hair, the face, not the body, but the hair and the face. So I nicknamed him Lee Ferrigno. That was my nickname for El Dandy. Always smiling, whatever you wanted, good worker. Talking about a guy with another good punch, great punch, and everybody bought it. He was an excellent performer and a pleasure to be around.
The joke on the question is, in a famous interview with Bret Hart that was being conducted by Mean Gene Okerlund, he referenced, that he was going to take on the big competition and give them title shots, and said something like, as he's naming people, I'm doing this from memory, I may have some of it wrong, El Dandy, and Okerlund says, El Dandy, like he's incredulous that El Dandy would be an opponent for Bret's world title. And Bret immediately quipped, who are you to doubt El Dandy? And it's now gone viral in the last, 10 years or so. So that's the gist of it. Does Arn doubt El Dandy? But you said clearly you do not, because he was a hell of a worker.
No, I do not. And apparently Bret Hart doesn't either. The only one that doubts him is Mean Gene. God bless him.
Paul Wilcoxon has a great question. He says, how do you feel Brock Lesnar would have been booked in the territory days? How big of a must-see attraction could he have been?
Sky would have been the limit, I would think. He would have been as big a star as whatever company was smart enough to make him, because he is one of those unique entities that only comes along. It's not every decade. It's once in a lifetime.
Maybe Brody Andre like he's going to come in and he's going to draw money, but he's probably not losing, and he's going to the next town.
Oh, you know what? Because things were set up differently, and there were more options, and there were more scenarios. And I would think he would have been a little more versatile, as far as he would have been a guy that you could have beat at some point, but you would have certainly built your company around him. He wouldn't be a guy that had never gotten beaten in years and years and years. And, under the right circumstances, it never hurts anybody to get beat. It just has to be, the circumstances need to be plausible and believable. And I just think that he's such a monster, but he's capable of so many things offensively and so many things defensively, that he's just such a world-class athlete, and his look and his size and all of those things. I mean, you're talking about a heel that you could have pushed to the moon with your big star sitting over on the other side of the ball waiting on him. He's the guy.
Keith Rawson writes, what would you say is one of the most impactful moments in your career? And if you could go back and change anything, what would it be and why? So 2-part question. Is there a big, crucial, pivotal moment in your career, do you think, that you go back and say, man, everything was different after this?
Yeah, when I retired. Never getting to wrestle again, never getting to experience what I'd wanted to do my entire life. Never getting to lace those boots up and, go through the butterflies and the nervousness and the anticipation and looking through the curtain and seeing the place packed out, and just all the things that made me want to be a wrestler. That night, it changed forever. And it would never be the same again. And I had to approach the business from a totally different level, find a different way to enjoy and be passionate about the options that were left. And thank God I had options that were left. It could have been, there's a lot of guys that get hurt in this industry that just are forced to just walk away because there's no need for them anymore, which is cold and callous and cruel. but it's just the nature of the business. And I felt very fortunate that I had something to fall back on, and that's the backstage area.
If you could go back and change any one thing, is there anything you would change?
I don't think so. I had a nice career. I had a 15-year career. Still having a career. I did something right along the way. And I'm thinking maybe the biggest thing that I did was tell guys the truth.
David Cleveland writes in, I was fortunate enough to see the Enforcer in person at the Greenville Memorial Auditorium in '86. What were some of his favorite venues during those JCP years?
Oh God, Charlotte, Greenville, Greensboro, Fayetteville, Baltimore. Some of the Florida towns were incredible. Miami, Jacksonville, Tampa, Birmingham. I mean, there were Knoxville, Tennessee. There were so many great venues, you know, that they just love wrestling. And I would say the Southeast as a whole, but you go up as far as Philadelphia and Baltimore and those towns, man, they were red hot too.
No doubt about it. It's a different business. Dylan wants to know, what was Elizabeth like to work with when she aligned with Flair in WCW? As wrestling fans, we've heard a lot of stories about Elizabeth, but mostly from her WWE days, not much from the WCW days. By the time you were working with her here in WCW, she and Randy were divorced. What was she like in the WCW era?
Liz was always a lady. She was always very quiet, very demure, very ladylike, easy to do business with, easy to talk to. She was always the same to me, just a quiet, unassuming lady.
Here's another one, and this one is one that is more recent. I'm excited to get your take on, from Dermot McCarthy. What are Arn's thoughts on Cassius Ohno / Chris Hero? One of my favorite matches of his was with William Regal in NXT. I think he's woefully underutilized and would have loved to have seen him and Cesaro reform their Kings of Wrestling tag team someday. Of course, that happened on the independents and they were ripping it up long before they were in WWE. Chris Hero, for whatever reason, has been with NXT for a long, long time and hasn't got much play on the main roster. Lots of theories as to why. You've probably had an opportunity to see his work and maybe know him. What'd you think of him as a performer?
Well, surprisingly not. I don't know him. I haven't been around him much. Is he still on the NXT roster?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
The only thing I could think of, two things. If Regal enjoyed working with him, that meant he could work, because Regal was incredible. And the guys he would have liked to have worked with would have been guys that could keep up. That I know from experience. The only thing that I can think of is the guy is so polished and such a good hand that they want to keep him on the crew. But I go back to, we all know what WWE's first criteria is: cosmetics. I don't think he's a body guy. I don't think he has those movie star good looks. I think he's probably just a athletic, solid, probably good performer that you want to have as a utility man on your crew, but you're not necessarily have any plans to make him a star, is the only thing. Now, I'm guessing if he's been there that long, though, I think he's valued to an extent. It's just there's a difference on being on the crew and being a star.
Well, that's a shame. He's one hell of a wrestler. Haristo writes, did Triple H or Bobby Roode ever talk to you about using the spine buster? What's your favorite variation of the spine buster besides your own? Ron Simmons, Batista, The Rock, they all used them as well.
Well, I'm honored that all those names that you just named would use a variation of it. Because I did create it. I used it for a lot of years before anybody came behind me and used a variation of it. And that's some pretty big names. Ironically, both Hunter and Bobby Roode at different times did come up to me and went, "Hey, I'd really like to use that move." And certainly Hunter was in a position to do whatever he wanted. "Would you mind if I used your spine buster?" And I was flattered and honored and by both of those guys. And certainly Ron Simmons had some torque on it. So did Batista's. And there are a lot of guys that do my variation scattered around, the Rhinos of the world. And C.W. Anderson, I'm sure, uses it. I haven't seen him work, but I'm sure he does. And I'm honored that they would think it has enough value to put it in their match.
Yeah, I mean, the spine buster is always going to be synonymous with you. Jay White wants to know, and this is a tremendous question: if Tully doesn't fail the drug test, are the brain busters still the World Wrestling Federation tag champs?
No, because we were already on the way out when that supposedly occurred.
He meant, like, in tongue in cheek, would you still have the belt now in 2020? Because you guys would have never lost because you were good. It was a compliment.
Oh, so I misunderstood that entire.
He's saying you would still be champion 25, 30 fucking years later. You'd still be the champ.
God almighty. Well, that's pretty awesome. But, I think somebody along the way would have probably knocked us off. Might not have happened for a couple of years because we were pretty much on a roll at that time. We had our stick down, and I don't think anybody was any better, and I didn't see anybody come along soon after that was any better. We could have had a hell of a run. Who knows?
Gustio Windflap wants to know, does Arn have any memories of the friendly tap?
That is our friend Tim's joint, correct?
That's right.
I heard stories. Be honest with you, I'm not tough enough to go in that place. Heard a lot of stories about guys going in and having a few cocktails when they were in the area. And what is Tim's last name? I feel so guilty about not knowing it.
Tim White.
Tim White, a long tenured member of the WWF, WWE company. I think he might still work for him, doing appearances and escorting guys and doing stuff. But that was his place, and he always invited us in. It was just one of those things that when the show was over, we were too busy getting to the next town because that had the, traveling at night up in that Northeast, a lot of things could happen during the day. It could be a wreck. There could be construction, any number of things that could really mess up. So the rule of thumb was when you're in the Northeast or California, show was over, get to the next town that night. And that prevented us from going to the tap very, very few times.
Jim wants to know, was there ever any talks of Arn managing Evolution? Of course, Evolution being Batista and Randy Orton, Ric Flair, and Triple H. A lot of people naturally drew comparisons to the Four Horsemen, but the Four Horsemen had a J.J. Dillon. Was it ever kicked around that maybe you could be Evolution's J.J.?
Never. Nope. That was, they had all the people in place that they needed. Those guys could talk. Certainly Rick, was in a position to take the lead on doing most of the talking, and Randy and Batista were coming along nicely. Hunter was a veteran. I will take credit for one thing, however. I did name them, which might not be that well known. I came up with the name for Evolution, so I did have a part of it kind of on the sly.
Well, you've had a lot of parts of a lot of things these days, because this episode is sponsored by BlueChew.com. Guys, remember the days when you were always ready to go? Well, now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Listen up, BlueChew.com. That's blue like the color blue. It's going to bring you the first chewable with the same FDA approved active ingredients as both Viagra and Cialis. You can take these anytime, day or night, even on a full stomach. And since they're chewable, they can work up to twice as fast as a pill. So you're ready whenever an opportunity arises. And if you could benefit from more confidence where it counts, BlueChew.com is the fast and easy way to enhance your performance. Blue Chew is prescribed online by licensed physicians, so you don't have to go to the doctor's office or wait in line at the pharmacy, and it ships right to your door, all in a discreet package. They're made right here in the USA, and since BlueChew.com prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. And perhaps best of all, no more awkwardness. And right now we've got a special deal for our listeners. Just visit BlueChew.com and get your first shipment for free when you use our promo code ARN. Just pay $5 shipping. Again, that's BLUECHEW.com. And our promo code is ARN to try it for free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice. And we thank them for sponsoring the podcast. And they may have sponsored some things at your house as well. Maybe not.
Was that directed to me?
Well, just in my head. You've probably been popping a Blue Chew and hitting the old dusty trail.
You know what? Nothing in this life is free, I thought, but now suddenly something is free. So if you're going to get something this valuable for NO, and that means zero, and you have the opportunity to have a little hanky-panky, which is over the top, driven by Blue Chew, with your lady friend, seems like to me that is a win-win-win. Am I correct?
No, it is a win. I'm a fan, and we know Jim Ross is a fan. Every time I see him, he's got a blue tongue. So this stuff really works.
I, too, am a fan. So you can't go wrong. I don't know what you're waiting on. Let's get with it, fellas. The ladies are waiting.
Check it out. BlueChew.com. Use that promo code ARN. Unco Dion wants to know if you've had a chance to see Effie at any independent shows yet. Effie is a new character who's gained a lot of steam in the last 2 years or so. I mean, he's not new, but he's really popped off in the last couple of years, circulating on some of the more high profile independent wrestling matches. And to say he has a unique gimmick is an understatement. Have you had a chance to catch any of his work yet?
No, why don't you fill me in?
Well, it's a very flamboyant character, and he comes out to like a you got to see the presentation. Just the ring entrance alone, you'll get it, and you'll be like, okay, got it. And man, he's got quite the fan base, to the point that he's even got his own independent show, WrestleMania Weekend. So I'm sure lots of folks will be talking about that. But he's a character and a half, and by the way, a tremendous wrestler. So if you're curious about this guy that we're talking about here, go look him up at EFFY Lives. That's at Effie Lives. And, you'll see, you'll get the character when you click on it. I'll say that.
I will, check him out.
Yeah, I think,
and we will see what we have and, get back to you on that.
When you and I get together, when, you're in, Huntsville next week for AEW, I'll show you his match with Mance Warner from Nashville late last year. It was like a WCW tribute match of sorts. And, there's some good wrestling in there, but there's also some fun, silly gaga that I think you'll get a kick out of.
Very good. Very good. I can't wait.
Jay wants to know who had the gimmick first, Barbarian or the Road Warriors? Jay says the gimmicks were so similar: ring attire, face paint, big dudes, etc.
Yeah, I think the Road Warriors were first. I think Barb came after that. I never looked at those guys in the same vein. Their style was completely different. You know, and the Road Warriors are unique. They're going to be unique to all the world as far as a tag team goes. You know, when you pull up the time capsule and look back at every team there ever was, they're going to stand out and be unique. And Barb, who was a monster and you know, did use the face paint and all, his style was totally different. And I just think they're recognized totally separately. I don't think anybody will group them in the same group.
Late to the Nitro Party writes in your opinion, who is the best wheelman in wrestling?
Well, we've talked about that. Haku, if that's what we're talking about, who was the man?
No, wheelman. Like, you know, driver.
Wheelman.
Wheelman.
Well, that's me. My God. I mean, who else would it be? I have driven every trip I've ever been on, whether it be as a wrestler talent or unless I was just in somebody's personal vehicle, like we were around Atlanta traveling or something. Say I was with Dustin Rhodes in his truck. Any rent-a-car that's ever been rented, pretty much I did the driving just because I like to drive. I can't stand to sit over on the passenger seat or in the back and just do nothing. It just bugs me. And, you know, I don't want the police to hear this, but I do sometimes hedge a little bit as far as the speed limit, which gets us a little more time in the hotel, a little more rest time, gets us to the town, maybe leaving just a smidgen later. But I'm the wheelman.
I'm a bad wheelman. I got caught on my most recent trip to Florida hedging, not once, but twice on the same trip. So what I need some pro tips here. I've heard that the old cliche with state troopers in the South is 9, you're fine, 10, you're mine. Do you adopt the 9 over cruise control or what's the enforcer's tip here?
I try to do that where it looks like it's going to be one of those where it's dipping down from 70 to 55. It's kind of, you know, I find that those are the real speed traps. It is, I think it's 8 actually instead of 9 that they will let you slide on. Sometimes I've, been written a ticket for 5 over, which I thought was, a little bit, stiff. But, the thing about your problem is, Conrad, is you've probably got one of those cars that'll do 200 miles an hour. And it's kind of hard to not speed when you're driving something like that. Try not, owning a Testarossa or Ferrari or whatever it is you drive.
I don't own a Ferrari or a Testarossa. So.
How about that top shelf BMW?
Yeah, I do have a nice car. I'll give you that.
Look at the speedometer. Yeah. What does it say for a maximum? 200. I rest my case.
It's weird that you knew that without ever, you didn't know, but you know, so there you go.
Hey, I just anticipated it and I was correct.
Yeah, you were not wrong. I don't know why people love asking you about road food, but they do. Late to the Nitro Party says, what was your favorite thing to order at Sabatino's? Flair back in the day on his podcast said that he liked, Fruity de Mar. So lots of seafood and some angel hair pasta. What was the go-to for the enforcer?
Yeah. That was good. There was a Frav Diavolo, I think, was another dish. You could start with their salads, and the salad dressing, which was made in-house, was incredible. The bread, the garlic bread was big cloves of garlic. Our breath had to stink so bad during the 80s. Oh my God. Thank God we all ate it or we wouldn't have been able to stay around each other. And I'm talking about the garlic. Clams Casino. God, I could eat 5 orders of those. They were all phenomenal. A lot of times we would just cut it off there and not get the main dish because you'd be so full after having that stuff that you just, you'd end up taking your entree back and it would sit there during the night while you're sleeping. You wake up and you had a beautiful dish sitting there, but it was ice cold. So anything you got was phenomenal, but that was my choice.
This is a fun one from Mark. He says, since I'm sitting here on a day off watching Happy Days, what was WCW's definitive shark jumping moment? To add context to the question here, there is a term in television that's been popularized for a few decades now that when something was cool and now all of a sudden isn't, and we've just had too much of a good thing and we've maybe wore out our welcome. The phrase is jumping the shark, because there was an iconic episode when they're trying to get over just how cool the Fonz was, where he literally was water skiing and jumped a shark. So was there a jump the shark moment in WCW that you can point to and say, man, we were rolling, but when that happened, it was over?
I think when the NWO hit 5 members, it was probably a tipping point heading down. You added Eric, which made 4, correct? Was he the 4th one?
No, I don't think so. I think he was a little later. I think,
the Giant was the 4th one.
There was Giant, and then there was 6, and then there was $1 Million Man. And then somewhere in there was Eric. So yeah, it was a few in, but the gist is the NWO got too big, too many members, too watered down.
Yeah. I mean, it really did. And I'm not sure exactly of the number, but I knew there was a time that you were adding, these mega stars. And I mean, it was the NWO, it was Hall, Nash, Hogan. When you had the Giant, you had X-Pac. I think after that point, from a talent perspective, you might have started the trend where it wasn't quite that special and unique. And I don't mean that the guys that they brought aboard weren't talented and weren't great guys and all that. It just, that was such a unique group at that time. And it was, the things they were doing were drawing a lot of money. I think each guy you added watered it down a little bit.
So the first member, of course, Scott Hall, then Kevin Nash, then Hulk Hogan. Number 4 was Ted DiBiase. Number 5 was the Giant. Number 6 was technically NWO Sting. Number 7 was Six. Number 8 was Vincent. Number 9 was Miss Elizabeth. And then number 10 was Eric Bischoff. But yeah, after that, it does fall off a cliff. Buff Bagwell, Michael Wall Street, Big Bubba Rogers, Scott Norton, Masahiro Chono, and then we're off to the races. But, when we're adding, Dusty Rhodes to the NWO, like, I don't understand that. So, yeah, some of that definitely makes sense. I think a lot of people would point to the finger poke of doom and say, either beating Goldberg or the finger poke of doom. And those are 2 weeks apart. That one of those would be the aha. That's the moment.
Yeah, it wasn't one of our greater achievements. That's for sure. What are you going to say? Right. I think the effect that it had, and going back decades later and looking at it with a fresh set of eyes, there were a lot of mistakes were made. That's for sure.
Andy C wants to know who came up with the mixed match challenge. How did the talent feel about working to, another match those days that meant nothing for the storyline?
Mixed match challenge. You're talking about lately?
Yeah. So a couple years ago, it would be taped out after Raw or SmackDown, I believe. And it was just a guy and a gal teaming up, a guy and a gal, and they were pushing it really hard that you would watch it on Facebook.
Right. And I think Facebook paid a large chunk of money to the office. I think that was the first thing that mattered, and maybe the only thing that mattered, because people would be leaving during the mixed match challenge, and you had some unique pairings. But let's face it, you put, female talent with Braun Strowman. What is the other team supposed to do? It was just, there was a lot of questions on some of those, combinations that they put people together. And I don't know, to me, it was, other than the fact that it put a lot of money, from Facebook and the WWE account. And it's always good to, be aware of all these financial streams of cash that come in, because it answers some questions when it appeared there were no answers to questions like, why would they do that? There's no possible reason they should be doing this. And I'm not talking just mix max challenges, but then you find out the revenue stream that's coming in from it. And that helps ensure everyone's jobs. And you got to be smart enough to know, there's one central bank account, I would think, and all these revenue streams come in. And if you've got a strong, thriving WWE, then everybody's job is safe. And that sometimes is the most important thing.
Really, a question I've never even thought to ask you comes to us from Brandon. He says, how do you think John Cena's 16 title reigns measure up to Ric Flair? And should he ever break Ric Flair's record? Also, does that many title wins devalue the championship in your opinion?
No, but you're gonna have to go back and you're gonna have to do a whole lot of studying and looking at each time there was a title victory. What were the circumstances within the company? How long it had been since there was another title switch or another title victory, and what were the angles when Rick was winning these world titles? Were they jump-starting business within the company he was working for? Were they a huge shot in the arm? Were they slingshotting a guy to superstardom? And you look at John, his victories, what was the story surrounding him? Did it benefit both parties? Did it benefit the company? There's so many things other than just looking at how many times somebody's won the world title. What were the circumstances? If they were company altering and they helped a handful of people by doing that, well, then it was the right thing to do. If it was just doing it to be doing it, well, not so much.
Let's ask a question about Jimmy Garvin. This comes to us from Charles. He says, what are your thoughts on the Jimmy Garvin Great American Bash backstage video? I'm sure you've seen it. What did you think?
I haven't seen it.
Well, it's an old school clip that, it was just on his personal camcorder, and somewhere along the way it got uploaded or released probably 15 years ago. And it just shows guys behind the scenes, sort of out of character. And you see things that you definitely shouldn't have seen. And I think it's 88. Like, I think one of the Road Warriors is, getting his blade ready and the whole deal. And the idea that sort of made it out into the hands of fans. I think some people were fairly upset about that. And obviously by the time it was released, or at least more widely circulated, the days of quote unquote kayfabe were in the rear view mirror, but still a lot of folks were maybe not thrilled.
Well, I think this was the time he was quitting, wasn't it? Quitting the business.
He was already out. I mean, I think it came out way after, he was done.
But I'm sure when it was shot, it was with the idea that it was for his personal use.
That's correct.
There's only one way it could have gotten released then. If he had it in his possession, it was his, right?
Yeah, he released it. Yeah, he did.
He leaked. Okay. Well, there was maybe there was probably you lost some trust by doing stuff like that. When you say this is for one thing, but it ends up being for another, it had to be for financial gain, I would think. And when you tell people in the locker room is supposed to be sacred, that's the one place you're supposed to be able to go as a performer and be completely relaxed that you're in a safe environment. You're in a sealed environment, and you can leave your valuables in that environment. You can say anything that you feel you need to say about anybody or anything in that environment. It's got to be the one sacred place that you can go to vent, blow off some steam, be relaxed, be safe, all those things. And somehow here in the story, it feels like that might have been violated to some point.
Wayne wants to know, Arn, what was the deal with the donut grab from catering on live TV? Was it a spur of the moment thing, or was it a rib on you?
Are we talking about Fandango and his partner, the backstage thing?
Yes.
No, we were goofing and we were doing a backstage thing, and I was happy to be in those guys' vignette. It was just one of those things that popped up that I thought might be cute. Fat guy grabbing 2 donuts. That's comedy.
A couple more, but this one, I can't wait to ask. I feel like you're going to have a fun answer. Charlie wants to know, why did you stay in the WWE so long if you hated working there?
Because nobody else was going to pay me what they were paying me, give me insurance, give me a retirement plan, pay for my rooms, pay for my cars, give me a per diem. When there weren't any other companies out there offering that, or there weren't any companies out there, period. You know, you come through a time after WCW disappeared, everything kind of drew up. It's like there were no companies. And that was a good, solid job with a good income. I have a family to take care of. And that preempted anything that went through my mind as far as my personal opinions about things. Where I thought mistakes were being made, all that. The number one thing in my mind was, hey, if you get punched in the chin or slapped in the face, turn the other cheek. And that's a cliche, but that's absolutely true. And just keep your job. And that's what I did for 18, 19 years.
It's amazing to me that sometimes I feel like entertainers are held to a different standard. And I guess I've been guilty of that too, but I had like a light bulb moment years ago when I saw world renowned actor Christopher Walken doing an interview, and whoever was interviewing him was very complimentary of all of his work, but then very critical of one movie in particular. Like after you did all these great classics and showed just how talented and skilled and how wide your range was, why in the hell would you do insert crappy movie here? And Walken just very matter-of-factly said, oh, my wife wanted a new house. That was just like the most practical duh. I think sometimes we as fans forget not everything is for the love of the game. Sometimes, man, we just got to pay fucking bills. So, to the person who asked the question, for the same reason you go to your job every day, you know, it's not, you're not getting everything you want like that every day there either, but you know, somebody's got to have insurance for those babies and we got to keep the lights on. So off to work we go.
Well, yeah. And hey, listen, I'm not saying poor, pitiful me, but let's put it to you this way. There's not much demand for a beat up ex-wrestler that's left-handed, but his left hand is suddenly paralyzed, with a bad neck and a bad back. There's not a whole lot of demand for that out in the working world that's going to pay you what you've been making in this industry. And hey, trust me, I wasn't a guy that made top money, but I'm not complaining. I made good money and I was smart enough to keep my mouth shut at least most of the time so that my family was taken care of. And that was the most important thing and is the most important thing today. If you don't look after the family, you're a real dipshit.
Well, it's worth mentioning too, that, I tend to disagree that you don't have marketable skills. Everybody's selling something. You're just a natural salesman. You just are used to selling backdrops and flying arm drags, but you could sell the shit out of anything else you wanted to sell too.
Well, thank you for that. I do think, I don't think I've ever been a charity case. I think I've earned my way right up until this day. On as far as the business goes. So if I had a spot, I think I've earned a spot, and I will continue to earn my keep with AEW, which I'm thrilled to be a part of. And we'll see how it goes. Sky's the limit, I think.
2 more questions and then we'll wrap this one up. We want to talk about John Cena. This one comes to us from Jackson McCoy. He says, John Cena's popularity grew organically, similar to Steve Austin's rise in WWE. But when the audience began to tire of Cena, wanting something new, how would you have booked a change in his character?
Well, I don't think there's anything you can say about John's rise in popularity that would be close to what Austin's was. because there were two different things. Austin was based on a couple of things. Number one, tremendous performer. Number two, looked the part. Maybe number three, which could be number one, was he had the unique angle of, for the first time in this industry, being able to look and tighten a Titan, Vince McMahon. Now, the reason I say Titan is he was on top of this industry for the last 30 plus years. Look him right in the face, who was also his boss, and give him the finger and get away with it. And that is every working man or woman, I would imagine's dream in this world, at one time or another, to be able to look at your boss and not do it behind her or his or her back, but look them right in the face and flip them a bird and go, I don't believe I'll do that today. That was the Austin build, and he got away with it. He got away with it, and it was the first time it had ever been done, and it was done so well, and it was such a rare scenario that everybody got in his pocket. John's was different. John was built on the other side, and it was based on kids and doing the right thing and saying the right thing, and he never faltered. To this day, John will come out and he will tell you something, and you can believe it. I do believe there was probably a spot somewhere along the way where you could have turned John heel. I'm not sure that how it would have been received. I know you would have hurt a lot of kids' feelings, and you might have turned the public off on him in general. John wasn't a well-rounded talent in the fact that he would have possibly made a great heel by getting his ass kicked and knowing what heels do, rolling out and running for your life and avoiding contact and ducking punches and covering up and all those things that heels do, lying, cheating, you name it. I don't think John had enough experience in that capacity to have been a top heel, and it was not his natural feel for the business anyway. He was probably suited just like he is right now. At least when John comes back in the door, whatever he tells you about the upcoming match he'll probably have at WrestleMania, it will be something plausible that you can believe. And the kids will be thrilled, and life will go on.
Well, life was going on after Starrcade 86, and the Red-Eyed Wolf has a question that I know you're going to have a hilarious answer for. How much ribbing went on after Flair suplexed Nikita and Nikita's penis came out? Tommy Young just popped it right back in for him.
Oh, that's way too much information.
You saw this, right? You guys had to be ribbing when you saw that or heard about it.
Yeah, I think everybody had a pretty good laugh. Those are the kind of things that you never thought you would see. And for a guy that was so serious about his gimmick and the way he was perceived and being a killer and all those things, which I respect. I mean, he protected his gimmick. Let's face it. Nikita changed his name. He was always talking in character. I respect that part about him. A lot of guys that, it would offend them, but to know that he's the guy that, number one, is upside down. Number two, his nutsack has fell down around his chin. You got to find some humor in that, don't you?
You have to.
So I think everybody might have had a little bit of a giggle at his expense.
If you're not in the loop, just go to YouTube and just check it out. Flair suplexes Nikita out of his trunks. And the first time I heard about this, I thought, no, because I'd seen the tape before, but hell, I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't looking there. And I was oblivious. And then when everybody was like, no, seriously, how did you not see this? You can't unsee it. So be careful if you go to YouTube and you take a look at that, because it's real. It's a thing. And, yeah, I can't believe it even made it on the Crockett VHS, but apparently it did. And I just feel like in the locker room, you guys you had to be relentless with both Nikita and Tommy Young, but Tommy's in a bad spot because he feels like he's got to protect the boys in the business here, literally the business. It's just hilarious. What a great moment.
Well, maybe Tommy should get one of our shirts that says, I am in charge of pecker checking.
Yeah, there's a lot of great shirts over at arnshirts.com. If you haven't already, check them out. arnshirts.com. My favorite is still Arn Anderson, What a Wrestler. I don't like What a Burger, but I like this shirt. You heard our Disco Inferno story. We've got an exploding disco ball on there. The human hat rack shirt, the television championship shirt, which is great. Probably the best shirt really is the classic Arn Anderson, established 1982, and the Enforcer in cursive writing below. We've got Toot Toot, which I've seen a lot pop up on social media. The rumor is next month, or maybe the month after, Arrive Spinebuster Leave is going to be on a national television program. You can get an officially licensed for Horsemen t-shirt, a Super Olympia shirt, lots of great stuff. Go check it out at arnshirts.com. And stay tuned next week. We're going to have another Arn show here for you. And I'm pretty excited about this one because, you know, we've covered a lot of stuff, from the more modern era. Last week, it really blew up. Everybody was excited for us to talk about Royal Rumble 2015 because it was so recent, but we're getting on our way back machine next week. And we're going to talk about Super Brawl 2. And we'll briefly run down the card there, because this was, I'm maybe at the peak of my fandom here. And the match on top is really what had all of my attention. It's Sting and Lex Luger for the world title. We've also got Rick Rude and Ricky Steamboat for the US belt. You're teaming with your old friend, Bobby Eaton, to take on the Steiner brothers for the world tag team titles. We've got Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes taking on Steve Austin and Larry Zbyszko. We've got Barry Windham and, Van Hammer and Z-Man against Ricky Morton and Vinny Vegas. I feel really bad for Ricky on that one. We got Ron Simmons and Cactus Jack, Terrence Taylor and Bagwell, Flying Brian and Jushin Liger. What a show. I mean, when we start with Flying Brian and Jushin Liger, and then we got the Steiners and you and Bobby Eaton, man, y'all are pulling out all the stops on this one.
You know, hearing that back, that's a pretty damn good card with a couple of exceptions.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of stinkers in there, but top to bottom, I mean, Windham and Dustin and Austin all in the same match. That's outstanding. Yeah,
it is. You better believe it.
So stay tuned next week. Go ahead and watch it in advance of our show. Super Brawl 2. It went down on February 29th, 1992. We're going to do another hashtag Ask Arn Anything after that. And then you want to talk recent? How about Elimination Chamber 2018? That's what's coming your way on the 17th. And we'll round out the month on the 24th with another hashtag Ask Arn Anything. But right now we're going to do something we've never done. And let's welcome to the show, a great friend of the show, wrestling fan just like you and I, and our biggest advertiser right now, Mr. Steven Singer from IHateStevenSinger.com. Steven, how are you, man?
I am doing great. How you doing today?
Man, I'm so glad you're here. You're here to save us all from looking like buffoons on Valentine's Day. I see why all the other jewelers hate you, though. You've made Valentine's Day an absolute no-brainer. You're getting a real long stem American Beauty rose that's been deeply dipped in pure 24 karat gold. How are you doing this for just $59?
Well, we are the world's biggest seller of gold dipped roses, and we started selling them in 1980, believe it or not. So we've really perfected it over the years, and we have several factories that make them, that we have, make them just for us. Each one specializes in different colors each year so we can get the demand and do everything. And this year, as you mentioned, we have this new rose. It's a rose gold rose. In other words, it's all 24 karat, but it's rose gold. It's like pink in colors, like kind of like if your wife, your girlfriend has a phone that's pink or rose gold, this will match it perfectly. And like you said, this is the world's biggest no-brainer because they start at only $59. And if you don't know what to get for Valentine's Day, Christmas, birthday, anniversary, Mother's Day, whatever it is, for, way under $100, you can get a gift that's going to last forever. And great gifts, don't have to be expensive. And I have guys that thank me, guys loving, giving diamonds and things because they last forever. But this is something that lasts forever and like way under $100, and you look like a hero.
That's exactly right. And what's cool about this is it's going to last forever and it's versatile. So I mean, even if you did go get her, you know, another pair of earrings, well, she's going to have to pick and choose when she wears it or what she wants to do. This is cool because this can sit in the living room. It can sit in the bathroom. It can sit on her dresser, at her office, at her desk, at home, wherever. I've gotten my grandmother one. I've gotten them for my mom. I've gotten them for my wife. Everybody loves this because it's a unique gift. And by the way, it sure does beat regular flowers that are going to be dead in your trash can a week later. This lasts forever.
That's for sure.
It never wilts. It doesn't need water. This is a lifetime long gift. And I can't believe it's only $59. Go take a look at this.
I'll tell you what's great about it. It looks like a lot more. Like,
yes.
You know, I had people when we first started selling these for $59. People said, you know, you must have made a mistake. This is a solid gold rose. It must be 5,900, you know? And they said, you must be missing some zeros. I said, no, it's a real rose and it's dipped in 24 karat gold and it's only $59 because it looks like so much more of a gift. But like you said, I'm a guy, you know, I'm always looking for something to give my wife, give my daughter, give my mom. And I love gifts that I get credit for all the time, something that doesn't melt. You know, candy's great, real flowers are great, but, you know, they either end up on your hips or in the trash in a week, right? This is something that you're going to get credit for all the time, and it's just a big no-brainer. And I got to thank you because we've had so many wrestling fans call and thank us that say they're fans of yours, that they follow you on your broadcasts, they follow you on social media, and that you recommended this, and because you recommended, they got it. And, you know, to be honest with you, we have so many people that get 24 karat gold diff roses for a girlfriend, for a wife, and then they'll come back and get diamond studs or a diamond bracelet, and they become lifelong customers and lifelong friends. And wrestling fans are just like that. They're very, very loyal, and, you know, they take people at their word, and we make it real easy because it's a no-brainer. It comes in a beautiful gift box. We'll ship it for free. We'll ship it to you or ship it to the recipient. You know, we give you a beautiful custom gift written in script, a beautiful gift message. So you can write whatever you like to your sweetheart, to somebody for Valentine's Day, to your wife, your girlfriend, your daughter, whoever it is. And you can, if you don't know what to say, we have a beautiful list of that you could pick the little gift message and the love note that you want to write to them. And they love it. They save the love note, they save the packaging, and they put it, like you said, on a desk, on a table, dining room table, at work, in a bedroom, in the, you know, in the kitchen. They just love it because anywhere you put real flowers, they put these, and they are real. They're just dipped in gold, and they look great all the time.
But here's what's cool about getting regular flowers delivered. The pro tip is you have it delivered to your wife's office because yes, she wants the flowers, but what she really wants is for everybody that she works with, all of her friends and family and coworkers, to know that she got flowers. Now here's the bad part of real flowers. They're going to be dead in a week. This thing, everybody who comes to her office for years will say, oh my God, how cool is this? It is the ultimate conversation starter. And by the way, you get the credit every time. And it was only $59. You just can't beat the wow in this. Don't take my word for it. You got to see it for yourself. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com. And by the way, there's never a need for a promo code. Just go to IHateStevenSinger, find the rose that fits you, whether it's yellow gold, rose gold, white gold, platinum, whatever color you want. And it's going to be to you just in time for Valentine's Day. Starting at just $59, it doesn't get any easier.
Yeah, get it now because a lot of different, you know, we always have something. We make hundreds of thousands, but we always run out of certain colors, whether it's a new color or something's really hot that year. So order it now. We'll ship it to you for free. We'll put the beautiful gift message and you're taken care of. And by the way, they have a lifetime guarantee on them as well.
How do you beat it? Check it out. IHateStevenSinger.com. And by the way, Steven Singer is a real wrestling fan, just like me and you. He listens to the show every week. Support one
I sure
of us.
do.
Go to IHateStevenSinger.com. You'll be glad you did.
Thanks so much. Happy Valentine's Day. Great talking to you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. So there you have it, guys. Man, it's a pro tip. It looks like it's worth $590. It feels like a misprint. Go check it out for yourself. I Hate Steven Singer. We really appreciate your support here on Arn's show. We're just getting going on this show. If you could do us a favor and tell your friends about the show, man, we sure would appreciate it. Maybe you just want to introduce your friend to the show with a clip, one of your favorite clips from the show. Go to Arn Show on YouTube.com and click the subscribe button and the notification bell. Find your favorite clip from the show, share it with a friend. And if they like it, man, tell them to follow us on Twitter at The Arn Show and follow us on YouTube, Arn Show on YouTube.com. We're really focusing on growing our YouTube. We're going to give you some fun milestones when we hit certain goals, we're going to crank out some more bonus content for you. But we really appreciate the show, working really hard to keep the show fresh. And I like this every other week as a hashtag Ask Arn Anything. It really lets you guys sort of dictate what we're talking about. And that makes for a good show. And we hope we had a good show for you this week. Looking forward to being back with you next week, talking about Super Brawl 2. So hit the subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review if you think we've earned it. And don't forget to tell your friends. Arn every Tuesday right here on Westwood One. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future clips that we upload. We hope we made you laugh, and we hope we can save you some money right now at SaveWithConrad.com.